and take some pictures along. So, so when I taught this class, I think between 2008 and 2017 or 16, I used to show a movie. The movie is called The Gods Must Be Crazy. Has anybody seen that movie before? Yes, it's a movie about how Africa is perceived from the West. And when I finished showing that movie, I asked the students in the class, do you think Africa is still like that? And usually I get everybody saying yes. And that's how I start my class. So, have you guys read anything about Africa in recent times? Anybody can tell me what's the last time you read anything about Africa and what it was? Tell me.
Well, I'm in a literature class with professor. So
okay, with professor.
We read Americana, and I read Things Fall Apart, and Never Look an American in the Eye.
Yes. So, that's interesting. Anybody else? Anything you read about Africa? So, I also do read about Africa a lot because Rudolf and I used to produce African news in New York. It's a company called Sahara Reporters. We have like a TV, radio, and a website known as Sahara Reporters, which you have been taught about. And what we typically report is what is happening in Africa on a daily basis. And I also understand that post-colonial Africa history is a history of Africa as it connects to different parts of the world, especially the East and the West. And the West is America and Europe. The East, interestingly, is China. So as long as the African history has been post-colonial Africa history, China, America, Russia, which used to be known as the USSR, and Europe have been the contending forces. The only difference is that China has never occupied or colonized an African country. And as a result, their intervention on the continent of Africa was more like trying to help Africa liberation movements. By the way, when I was in detention, one of the books I read was about the Chairman Mao, and it was talking about his relationship with the African continent, how China tried to help a lot of African countries, why America was also trying to get involved in Africa. And I don't know if any one of you know about the Congo in Africa. Anybody heard about the Congo? Yeah? What do you know about the Congo? Tell me.
I've seen the middle of Africa.
Yeah, the middle of Africa. And it's one of the biggest countries in Africa, and it has some of the biggest resources in Africa available. But it's also a place that has been war from the beginning, because when the Congolese people wanted independence, they were confronted by the West. The West didn't like the leader of Congo, and they were trying to impose, or they eventually imposed their own candidates on the Congo. And the guy was in power for a long, long time. And being in power for a long time became one of Africa's biggest problems after independence. And how many of you know how many countries there are in Africa? Do you guys know? About 54 countries in Africa. Anybody here knows, apart from the Congo, anybody know any other African country? Oh,
no, I didn't know you wanted to do this.
No.
Okay.
No, all right.
Okay. No, okay.
No, that's fine. Keep it that way. I want to show them something about Africa. Yeah. So, yes. So this is, yes. Pull it up a little bit more. So this is the continent of Africa. I don't need to tell you that. But the interesting thing about Africa is that it is bigger than this map in landmass. To the point that if you bring China, it can take the whole of China, in addition to the people of Africa. If you add India, it can still take it. And where we come from is Nigeria. And the way I describe Africa is that it's like a pistol. If you turn this around, it looks like a pistol. This is the trigger, Nigeria. And South Africa is the nozzle. And you know that thing you use in, what's it called?
Telescope.
It's not, the one that gives you the, yes. That's Madagascar. And this is the whole base of how Africa is. And this is West Africa, you have been told. This is East Africa, you know, this is South Africa, and this is North Africa. And all these places at one time or the other had different Western government in charge. Nigeria was colonized by the British. South Africa was colonized, well, the land was stolen by the Dutch, people from Netherlands. The only African country that was never colonized, anybody know what the country is?
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. But it wasn't as...
Answer the question.
Me?
She did.
Yeah. They know.
Yeah. Do you guys know? Yeah, Ethiopia. And the reason Ethiopia was never colonized was not because they didn't want to colonize Ethiopia, but they have been fighting and they have one of the strongest army. And Italy tried to colonize Ethiopia several times, but they defeated them, so they became free. The only African country that was not colonized in West Africa, do you guys know it? Huh? Do you know it? It's Liberia. It wasn't as if they didn't want to colonize Liberia, but they dropped African American slaves who were slaves back into Liberia. So Nigeria, Togo, and Benin Republic used to be the slave coasts. And you guys saw President Biden yesterday or so. Anybody know where Biden is now? He's not on the beach. Biden is in Angola. Yeah, right now. And he's visiting Angola apparently to talk about America's regret for slavery. Because a lot of Angolans were shipped to the US and other parts of the world as slaves. So, but what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about how the African space has over time a little bit democratized democracy, and also how that is shrinking. Because a lot of African countries that used to be doing elections have now been taken over by military rulers. And you guys are aware of that, right? There's a country called Burkina Faso. It's under military rule now. The guy is such a good military guy, he carries pistol everywhere he goes. Guinea is under military now. I think Niger, right, is under military now. I think, is it Mali or so?
Mali, yeah.
Yes. So all these guys are back to military. Nigeria still under civilian rule. Civilian rule is different from democracy. I'm going to explain that to you. Democracy is, of course, when people vote in election and people win election and they become leaders. In Nigeria, they do election, but they don't count the results. Somebody is declared a winner. So that's where Nigeria is. And Cameroon, next to Nigeria, also has a dictator. The man has been in power for almost 42 years now. There's a place called Equatorial Guinea as well. The guy has been in power for almost 40-something years. So Angola went through war. Namibia just selected a female president. You guys can clap for that. That's a female president in Angola. And also, I think, is it Tanzania that has also a female president? But there are not a lot of females on the continent of Africa who are leaders. Do you guys have any questions so far? I want us to engage in this conversation very well. Do you have any questions so far? Do you have? Okay, go ahead.
Can you expand more on how they choose the president for Nigeria if they don't exactly count the votes?
So yes, Nigeria is interestingly a mirror image of U.S. democracy. We have a president, and we have governors, and we also have like local governments. We have senators, and we have members. So we have Congress. We call it the House of Representatives, almost like the U.S. So normally we are supposed to have elections, just like U.S. have elections. But when it comes to the election time, they have a way of working with police, army, and they just change the results overnight and announce somebody. It's very corrupted election. So you will understand. You know, you guys just had election in America, like the U.S. Was it not how many months ago?
Yes.
Yeah. So if Donald Trump had not won, you will understand what it means to rig election. He will say that the elections were stolen. So whereas Donald Trump didn't complain of stolen election this year, in Nigeria, election is stolen every 4 years. Does that make sense? It's because the election process is not transparent, free, or fair. So I ran for election in Nigeria twice now, and I ran for president. If I won, I wouldn't have been in this class today.
If you come, you come.
If I came,
security
they have to shut down this whole building. So I would have been an African big man. But that's not the intention. In fact, I had told Rudolf that if I won, I would still love to come to the class so that you can at least see an African president in person. But that's on the lighter side. Any other questions for me? Do you have any questions?
Are you gonna run again?
Well, maybe when the cameras are off. I don't know yet. So I'm more focused on fighting I'm more interested in the revolution in Nigeria. And it's just, I'm tired of just running because we already would know the election results, even though we know we're better than the people who are there.
If you're not going to run, but you have a political party, what happens to the political party?
Well, if I'm not going to run, the political party that I set up in 2018 with my colleagues and friends, presents candidates for local elections. They present governorship elections, but most of the elections are the same. It gets treated the same as stolen. So, but the party is still there. The African Action Congress that I founded. So, yeah.
So what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna make change from?
I hope to really pursue getting change on the streets. I believe seriously that we need to escalate the protests to expand the democratic space and have better freedom to speak, So I see a lot of you guys are from where? Anybody from China here? Yeah? Okay. Is anybody from South Korea? No? You are from South Korea?
We're born in the U.S., but we're not Korean.
You know there's a protest going on in Korea now. Can you tell us why there's a protest in Korea?
The president announced the government going under martial law.
What is martial law? I love that. I'm asking because I know what it is, but do you know what it is?
Basically military controlling the country.
So martial laws are laws that restrict, it gives military more power to do it, and it restricts, of course, free speech, movement, it restricts. It's pretty much saying the constitution is no longer in place. That we now allow the military to rule, mostly with decrees. And I'm asking because people have been asking us, especially on the social media, those of us who are on this side fighting against the Nigerian government, why don't you do what they are doing in South Korea? Because a lot of people are monitoring South Korea and the movements that is going on there. And they said the president should resign. I heard they want the president. Has he resigned?
I think he is in the process of getting impeached.
Okay. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. It's you guys pay attention to. I wanted to ask this question. This is unrelated to politics. What happened to Alibaba, the guy who owns Alibaba? Anybody knows here? What happened to him? Yeah. I haven't heard from him in a long time. I know this. Is it politics?
He's one of his company because touching the bottom line for the banks.
Okay.
The government don't allow him to do that.
So where did he go? I haven't seen him in public.
Maybe foreign playing golf.
Maybe he has too much money. He doesn't really care anymore. Yeah. All right. It's good to know. It's good to know. Do you guys travel back to China a lot? Are you guys from mainland China? So you come to school and then you go back. Anybody going to China this Christmas? You're going to China this Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to come. By the way, there's a lot of Nigerians in China, as you guys know. China happened to be one of Nigeria's biggest trading partners right now. So every day we get stuff from China in Nigeria. We have Chinese restaurants, but they're too expensive. You know, I prefer the ones here. It's $5. In Nigeria, Chinese restaurant is like $100 to buy food there. So we are discussing food politics now. But the reason I'm mentioning it is also that culturally, politically, and in the way that Africa relates with the rest of the world, it's all encompassing. There's the business of commerce, there's politics, there is culture now coming into it. Interestingly, Rudolf, I don't know if you know this, while I was in Nigeria, there were a lot of Chinese guys getting married to Nigerians. I'm serious, especially the males. So we treated a case on Sahara Reporters where a Chinese guy had a lady and ran away. And but the Chinese embassy was helping the lady to reunite with the guy. So there's a lot of Chinese guys in Nigeria, for your information. So if you want to study abroad in Nigeria, who are very grounded, there's a whole Chinese market in Lagos, purely like Chinatown in Lagos. Yeah, it sounds funny, but it's true. So when I become president, you can come to Nigeria to work with us. So is there any one of you who heard anything about Nigeria before you came to this class? Nigeria in particular?
Yeah, I have a Nigerian friend in Beijing.
In Beijing?
Yeah, but he speaks Chinese.
Yeah.
He's a student.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Wow, that's very interesting. I have friends in China as well who are Nigerians. In fact, when I was campaigning to run in Nigeria, they invited me to China to come and campaign in Beijing, but I never went to. I didn't get to travel to Beijing. Maybe next time, if I ever run again, maybe I'll go to China. Another person have questions? Any other question?
I have a question.
Yes.
So what's happening in South Korea? I wanted us to discuss it in this class.
Yes.
Do you think that it's possible for something like that to happen in Nigeria?
It's very interesting. And this is part of why I like the question, is to go back to our South Korean sisters here. What do you think mobilized people in South Korea? Because yes, there's a martial law, there's provision for it, but there's always something that leads to something. And what made people to come out? What do you think that was? Because your economy is good, right?
Yeah.
So people are not hungry. Why are they protesting?
I think they really didn't want.
They don't want this guy.
Yeah, they.
Yeah.
I think they really liked having a democracy and
Yeah.
keeping it that way, and
Okay.
they kind of freaked out when he like declared it, and
Yeah,
like
and martial law.
all they like thought about was to stop
Yeah.
it immediately.
So what about what you think helped them to mobilize people on the street? Was it social media?
I think social media played a really big
Is there
part.
Twitter in South Korea?
Yeah, like I know one of the Democratic leaders, like he put on YouTube Live and he was like going over the fence and everything. And I think people like because of social media, they found out about what was happening
Yeah.
like really quickly, and they like went out to the streets.
So that's it. So social media. What about the demographics? Who do you think mostly are involved in the protests? Is it younger people? Is it the Gen Z?
I
People.
think a lot of younger people were really protesting. I know like a lot of the older generations were out in the streets actually protesting, but a lot of the younger generations were like kind of spreading the message around more.
Okay. So let me guys ask this foolish question about China. Do you guys have social media inside China that's different from what we know?
You mean social media?
Like, do you have like your own brand of Twitter?
Weibo.
Huh?
Weibo.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard about it before. And do you have like your own brand of Facebook too? So you have everything else that the rest of the world has,
Yeah.
but there's a firewall not to join Twitter and the rest. You know, what do you see as the level of interest of young people in China in politics?
Pardon?
Do you think a lot of young people, your generation, are you interested in politics in
Yeah.
China?
Yeah.
You are?
Almost everyone.
Wow. How though? How do you engage?
Because we have so many classes
Okay.
about the politicals,
Okay.
and and the news is often to report about it.
So, but how do you feel like this large scale sources of news that is different from the government, or is the government that controls news?
Yeah, it's true, but it's not like to just to report some good things, but also bad things, but to hide some like I don't.
No problem.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, but we can get VPN too. Yeah,
So
nobody
let
can control.
let me ask the next question. When the election in the U.S. was happening, what was going on in your mind? What was your reaction? You know, were you interested in the U.S. elections?
Yeah.
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 Ah.
I just don't like Trump. Yeah, because he has so many politics against China, like economic politics.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't like Trump either. So I don't know if anybody likes Trump here, but I'm just saying that's my own personal opinion. Because what I realized about Trump is that somebody can tell you they don't like Trump outside, but they like Trump inside. That's how Trump won election in the U.S. But I also feel like he's too like overly racist, and the people that surround him are not the type of people that I. But let me shock you. Trump has the largest number of supporters in Africa, outside of the U.S. A lot of Africans support Trump. Can you believe that? Do you know that?
I can believe that because I come from Latin America and Trump has a lot of Latin American supporters too.
But why do you think so?
Well, I can only speak for Latin America, and it's a lot about the way that in the past we've glorified the US and how you come here, the Latin Americans that have come here kind of achieved the dream and they want to keep it that way, and they have this image in their mind that they're different from the other immigrants because they're legal now and they have the life that they're supposed to have as an American. So it's a lot of like what is sold about America to the other countries.
Which part of Latin America?
Colombia.
Fantastic. Life question now. Who amongst you would like to stay back in the US when you're done? Do you like US?
Yeah, maybe.
What do you like most about the US? Music?
Sport.
Ah, interesting. Let somebody answer at the back. What do you like most about the US? Anybody at the back?
I like how everyone has their own opinion and we can share and discuss very freely.
Okay. So the question the answer you answered is why I came here today. Opinions. You have a question?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, in this class, we talked about Patrice Lumumba.
Yes.
And how they killed him, the CIA and the British and the
British intelligence and the French.
all of them. They killed him because he was pursuing a policy that was different from what they expected. They don't want to lose the country.
Yeah.
So, as a presidential candidate, were you approached by secret agencies of countries like America to try to influence you? Were you in their good book or bad book?
So the interesting part is this. It's a good question, and I've never said this in public before, but in 2019, I was invited by a U.S. I don't know what they call it. It's a political officer, but it's a higher up political officer in Lagos, and they just reached out to our team and they said this guy would like to meet us. I think he was the council, in Lagos. So we went to his house, very nice house, just, it has lagoon in front of it and plenty of wine. And I find it very interesting because as all of them came out, you could never figure out where they stood. And I think that's what they call diplomacy. And so they was like, okay, just tell us about what you think. Do you think this election will be free and fair? But I think at that time they were looking to support Atiku. And it was the time that Atiku, who had been away from the US, was able to fly back to the US overnight and return. It sounded more like, because at the point they said, so we don't think you can win this election. That's what they said. But why don't you coalition? And I said, which coalition? No, we're not. They suggested and they said, no, we're not asking you to be part of any coalition. We're just saying it's there. So, and then I started to understand, but in terms of secret relationship was to know, and I was never approached on that scale. But I guess that's how they caught people. They must first of all make the contact, and I guess maybe if you're interested and they thought maybe you have prospects, it would have gone beyond that. But that's about the only pre-election thing I've had regarding. Every other thing had to do with my detention and release and eventually return to Nigeria. So guys, you've seen I was also in Nigeria in detention. I was in prison in Nigeria.
So tell them how is prison, because we saw Patrice Lumumba in the documentary where he was in a small cell.
Yeah.
How is it? Is it improved now? You were in the elite DSS cell, which is the
No, actually, in my own case, I didn't spend time in one prison alone. So my first detention was the elite DSS. It was pretty decent accommodation. I had a separate bathroom from where I slept, and I could. At the point I had AC that broke down eventually. And the reason I had an AC was because it was a guy who was detained there who was a rich guy, so he bought an AC and they couldn't remove it by the time I got there. The guy's dead now, Patrick Kuba. Ifeanyi Uba. So I was staying in the room that he stayed before. And the interesting thing was that when he was in detention, nobody knew he was in, because he had a deal with them not to reveal it.
I didn't know.
Yeah, he was detained, so I benefited from his corruption. I stayed in this room that he was staying, and he has a nice bed.
How many kind of bed? What inches? What kind of bed?
It was a king size.
King size?
Yes, I had to.
That's what you were sleeping in?
Yeah, I was sleeping on this king size bed. Scandal, right? This is big scandal.
We'll have to show this on society.
You
had king size bed. I was sorry for him.
But here is
I was going on NPR talking about how
here is the cake. Here is the cake. Let me finish the story. So here is the cake. Is that the room had no, sometimes you don't know.
No TV.
No TV. No, at the point when we revealed that they gave TV to Boko Haram people, then they brought us TV. Because there were a lot of terrorists that were staying on the same floor.
You know that 90% of Nigerians don't have TV at home.
Yes, we have. So, but this one is not hidden. We've spoken about it. So, but there was another time in January of 2021 that I was arrested again, and I was put in. You know what it is? Death row.
Where? What prison?
That was a Kuje prison. And they lied that we only slept there for one night, but it was the most harrowing night in my recent life. So they lied that if they didn't put us there, we will catch COVID. So, and we just walked into the place like happily thinking that it's, and it was the guy who is our guard. To get out, he has to be let out by another guard from outside. So if there was a fire break, anything goes wrong, it was just like concrete slabs, and the toilet was over, and then he slept there. That's it. That was pretty terrible. And then another time I was detained for 11 days at Abattoir, as it is called. That one is like, so that one has a detention. No, it's not Abattoir. It was FCID. That one. I was detained inside a cell that has another cell inside. And then Abattoir was also another cell inside the major cell. So you couldn't really catch them because there are a lot of detainees in there. But with the DSS, I was staying in Ifeanyi Uba's. I've also met him before he died. I thanked him for that.
What about the food? How is the food?
So with regards to DSS, the first place, I refused to eat their food, so they let me bring in my food. I take food from them at 4 p.m. every day. But that's the only time we're allowed outside, to come outside. So I was indoors in solitary confinement every day, the whole day, and then 1 hour to go get food and come back. But good food. Because it was my own food. I was buying food.
Yeah, you were buying it, okay. And you didn't fear that they would tamper with the food before it gets
No, I didn't allow them to touch it. It's the people that brought the food that I take the food from downstairs and then we go back up.
Okay.
Yeah, so I brought my own food and water. But if they want to tamper with the food, I'm sure it's possible, because when we go to sleep, they can always sneak in and do something. I don't think they'll have a problem poisoning.
The
only thing is that there was no privacy in that room. They had like this fire, and I mean it looks like carbon monoxide detectors, but it was cameras.
Yeah.
So, but when I found out, I would wrap towel around and they'll rush to the place. That's how I knew it was a camera. So you had no privacy.
So you get food once a day.
Yes.
Do
But
you
it's
have
food
do you have microwave?
Yes. So we have a microwave bought by Ifeanyi Uba, and we also had
the fact is that you have microwave,
and we also had a freezer.
Microwave today.
We had a freezer in that place too. Yes. Also, up to a point, I had what's the thing you run on? Treadmill. Yeah, but it broke down after a while. So
no wonder you were not in a hurry to come back.
I wasn't there. Yeah, but the important thing is that there is no convenient prison at all. It doesn't matter if it's a 5-star hotel or an underground cell. But they have underground cells there, and they didn't want me to see it because of the controversy around the Web 9. But there was a day where the elevator and somebody accidentally pressed, and we just came out and it was like, oh, come on, and it was massive underground cells there.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what happened to me in trying to express myself, free speech, and what the continent of Africa is about in terms of the shrinking space for speech and democratic participation. I have seen it, firsthand, and that's why I'm able to. That's what qualified me to come to this class today. Apart from the fact that I used to be the teacher of this class. So I used to teach this class. I enjoyed it a lot. It's one of the things I enjoyed. I think I taught this class for 8 years before I left. Yeah, so I've been in touch with a lot of students. I don't know how it's structured now. We used to do movies and we'll do a lot of talking about, a lot of social-political things and global politics. One of the things I used to do in this class is ask people before the next class to read something about Africa, and we'll talk about it for like first 10 minutes. Because the interesting thing about all of you, if this is not an accusation, is that a lot of people don't know Africa as it is. They just think of Africa based on the map of Africa and what they see on media and social media. But also you cannot ignore those things. Like there's a whole lot of African expression now on social media, of which TikTok is number one. I think TikTok is the most popular platform now on the continent. Is that TikTok in China? Is it not owned by a Chinese guy?
Yeah.
But they don't have it in China. Right?
They have it.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
Any one of you have like TikTok channels? Do you have one? Nobody confesses it. I understand. But that's the story. Any more questions? Comments? Do you guys like this class? Let me embarrass him. Do you like it? Yeah.
So they are citizens of different African countries.
Them?
Yeah, accent.
Which countries are you guys from?
Accent.
Okay, let me start from here. Colombia.
Ethiopia with.
Oh, I see what he did. He assigned you countries.
No, they chose their countries.
Which country did you choose?
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
So they know everything about you. Can
How about you?
Place their knowledge.
Botswana. What is the most important mineral out of Botswana? Diamond, he's right.
Oh yeah.
How about you? Egypt. What do you like about Egypt? The Nile. How about you? South Africa.
Yeah, they are good. They have passports. Who has a passport? look at their passport.
Wow.
Of their countries.
That's amazing. Okay, raise up your. Let me take a picture. Let me take a picture of that. Let me see your passports. Wow. Can you help me with the bitches? That's interesting. Very good. Yeah. So this is the African Union.
Yeah. African yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
Do you guys know about the African Union?
No.
Yeah, you don't know about the African Union? Okay, I didn't know this. So the African Union is the conglomerate umbrella body of all African countries. So that's where all the African leaders meet for tea every year, to drink tea and just sleep and wake up and go back to another.
So one question, because we have to talk about it in this class before we end it. Maybe you can give us feed.
Okay.
How do you see China's relationship with Africa? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it different from what Europeans did when they were in charge of Africa? Are we in another, what they call the second scramble for Africa? Because if you look at Biden, why he went to Africa was to go and counter China's influence in Africa.
Yeah.
And that was why he started building, or they're building the, what they call Lobido corridor, which is a rail track that crosses.
Yeah, I was surprised 3 days ago when I heard him talk about that Africa is part of even the U.S. infrastructure bill, because the U.S. typically don't care about infrastructure anywhere, and China has been a partner with Africa in terms of infrastructural development. What I find interesting about China's relationship with Africa, this second scramble, is that the first time China was involved with Africa, China was very politically involved in Africa. In fact, China used to clandestinely provide African leaders, independents, and leftist leaders with support, weaponry, money. But this time around, China has a very neutral attitude towards governance in Africa. It's just like, we are not here to interfere in your personal affairs. We just want to partner with you. We bring in our engineers. We build you roads, hospitals, and we sell our goods and services to you. And we help you mine your minerals. We don't want to know about you. But interestingly also, China is engaged in what I noticed to be like a cultural, I don't know whether to call it cultural imperialism, where there's also now bouquets of China channels in Nigeria. If you turn on TV in Nigeria, you see, is it CTGN? There's a China, they have a lot of Chinese channels. And that is how they're projecting themselves to Africans. And they are English speaking. So I don't think that China used to really care about whether Africans listen to Chinese news or not. But they now take African news themselves. So I have been, for instance, approached before by a Chinese station. I don't remember if we could partner on Sahara. But I don't think the conversation went very far because what they were looking for was different from what we were willing to offer. But there's a whole lot of investment in the information sector and in the construction sector. And but yes, the second scramble for Africa started, but I don't think there was ever a time that the scramble for Africa, the first one, ended. So saying that the second is something I can't. But China has been the alternative power backbone of a lot of African countries, especially in the infrastructural development.
So the question is it good? Is it going to be good for Africa, better for Africa? Are Chinese businesses and interests in Africa better than that of Europeans when they were in control?
I would say that there's a good part of it, which is the fact that Africans have the alternative partnership to build infrastructure. And the competition that China is providing is only the reason why the US is even thinking about a railway corridor. Otherwise, they were mostly interested involved in crashing planes of leftists and killing people like Lumumba. So I think that's positive in a way. But I wish that China has a moral position on leadership and governance in Africa. So I guess when I become president, I'll find out that. But if I were to be president of Nigeria, I will relate with all this country based on the interest of Africans. Because Nigeria used to be that lead on the continent of Africa that everybody related with to discuss Africa, because Nigeria was a big brother in Africa. But we've lost that role due to bad leadership. And now, I was having a conversation before I came here. The US is more interested in supporting Egypt and South Africa for the United Nations Security Council position, because Nigeria has lost the support of all these Boy Scouts who have taken over power because of the way they felt like Nigeria was involved, even in creating some of those bad leaders and encouraging them, especially in Guinea, where the current president of Nigeria was very heavily invested in the corruption that was going on in Guinea, and even had the Guinean passport for a while. So I think it's important that Africa gets its own diplomatic face properly assembled or recreated, so that they can dictate to these other countries what they want, whether it's China, Europe, or America. That is what I think. But I must admit that there's almost a frenzy that any country that is relating with China, the US is almost like jumping at you, like immediately, like jumping on your back, you know, what's going on. They want to know what's going on there, you know. It's like you're taking their girlfriend, you know. Yes, like, what are you doing with China? So, but that's what I've noticed about the US. It's almost a crime for somebody to be in the good books of. You cannot be in the good books of US and China at the same time. Almost impossible. But a lot of African leaders know how to navigate it because they need it for their own personal pockets and not their people.
But Trump sent out a tweet this week,
Yeah.
where he said that any country that joins BRICS and decided to dump the dollar, that the country will pay, that they are going to eat.
They heavily for it.
Openly said that. So that means, and if you read the Project 2025, they talked about South Africa paying for joining BRICS, that South Africa has to choose whether to follow China or it's going to be on the good books of United States.
So the thing I've noticed about Donald Trump is that he's going to find out very quickly that he can't go find the country of Twitter. It's a second. He tried it first time. I don't know if he learned anything from it. I think part of their problem with Donald Trump is that they are too insular. They don't understand that the world is bigger than what they see. And I don't know if he learned anything from his first tenure at all, because the world is way more complicated than just talking about it. But what he's also saying shows to you where the world is and how the world operates. And that's the fact that, as I've always said, the biggest commodity the US has to offer the world is not aeroplanes or warplanes or weapons or such. It's the dollar. You know, that's how they control the world. They just print this currency and impose it on everybody. And the US military is basically an enforcer of the currency called dollar. That's probably why the motto on the dollar is "In God We Trust." It's not actually God they trust, but the dollar. So I can understand why they are freaking out, because if US loses its ability to control the global economy using the dollar, then its underbelly will be exposed. Everybody will know that the US is not what they think it is. So the facade will be so clear to the world. So they will do everything to enforce that. And I don't think African countries have the capability or capacity to withstand that. Maybe South Africa in a little way, you know, but I also think that will get China to be more involved on the continent of Africa, because now we'll be talking about some physical encounters. Yeah.
Okay, one last question from me. So in Nigeria today, there was a human rights attorney that was arrested under allegation of defamation of character. That's the late Farotimi. Is the leading story in most media in Nigeria. How is it with media space across Africa in recent times? How would you describe it? And is there any option with, I'm hearing from people that the US and all the other Western countries that used to care about freedom of the press, that they are less involved in kind of influencing these countries and leaders?
True. Before I answer that question, I have a question for the Chinese people here. Is it true that if somebody steals money in China, they face death penalty? Is it true? Death penalty. They shoot them if they steal money, if they do corruption.
Corruption?
Do they kill people because they do corruption?
If you take bribe, you know what bribe is? Yeah.
Or you steal money for construction or public.
It depends on how much
Oh, it depends on how much. How much can you steal in China to get killed?
There's some crazy numbers before she
Yeah.
came on. I think there's one in my hometown which he got bribed for around 10 billion.
10 billion, like, is that $10 billion or dollars?
Yeah.
And what happened to him?
You know, either is like forever in the prison or death penalty.
So they just they shoot him. All right. So back to your question. I'm asking this question on behalf of people who always talk about China, corruption, and death penalty. Is that so? We have this our friend. He's our friend who wrote a book and put the name of a big lawyer in his book that he's corrupt and he got arrested. He's still in prison as we speak. He was arrested 3 days ago. So I think that the state of media in Africa is two ways. It's mostly in Nigeria, it's self-censorship because people get into trouble and they always keep reminding you that the big man is more powerful than the constitution of the country. But also I think on the other side of it, social media and the internet has opened up the media space beyond the control of the government. And this is what Rudolf and I used to do in New York. We break news, we do a lot of corruption stories, and reveal a lot of government secrets that get them upset a lot, and there's nothing they could do about it. And Rudolf also had a show where he does a lot of satire, but just people don't find it funny. Yeah. So, is there another question from the?
How are you gonna get? You're saying that you want to get people to protest and really foster that. How are you gonna do that?
We mobilize people, and we keep trying all the time, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not as good as you want it, but you got to keep going until you win. And in this Nigeria is a very complex place because of ethnicity and religion. I think Nigerians and South Koreans have similarities in religion. I think you guys have like a lot of big pastors. Like, do they still do that in South Korea? Like big churches?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I heard a lot about South Korea having big pastors. In fact, there are a lot of Nigerian pastors that used to go to South Korea for what's it called, the crusade and all that. And I think some used to come to Nigeria. So yeah, but so there's problem of religion and ethnicity and all kinds of problems. Nigeria has lots of problems. That's why we need a revolution and we need it quick. But as usually say, a lot of countries need revolutions too, including the US. The US needs a revolution.
So one question. When I watched Patrice Lumumba, and I've watched it several times.
Yes.
I know you have to go several times.
I'm just trying to show up my watch.
I tried to compare him to Malcolm X. And it's a question I have. I'm revealing my final question.
Yeah.
Final exam question. They were young and they had this idea of where the world, what they think they want to accomplish. And I wondered if it was a factor in how they ended. So as an activist, it's easy. People, listen now. There are people in New York here with Malcolm X who were seeing him like you're seeing this guy now. You think, you don't know how important he is. And we don't wish anything bad happens to him. But it could happen, and he knows it could happen. Especially operating in a place like Nigeria. You might see yourself years from now saying, oh, he came to my class. And I want to know, for you, when you know that you're dealing with these kind of characters who run countries like Nigeria, you think about that you could become a victim, and there are many in the history of Nigeria, including the person we were talking about who was picked up
Yeah.
the other day. I was watching the video. It was like the video when they came to your
Yeah.
hotel and picked you up.
So-
So do you think about that, or do you put it off your mind when you say you are going back and you are going
Yeah.
to?
No, it's not like you think, you know it. You know that it's very, it's part of what goes with the territory of what we do. Debt is to the point that I don't care anymore about when I die. But my children do, because they need somebody to take them to school every morning. And but the thing is, you just have to understand that it's a dangerous job. Being an activist is the most dangerous job probably in the world, and that has been proven time and time over again. And there's no place that is safe for an activist. You guys heard what happened in New York City yesterday. I'm not saying that the CEO of that United thing is an activist, but if you have heard the conspiracy theories this morning about it, that the guy might have some secrets, and they had to kill him. The guys who were spilling on Boeing planes that they weren't properly built, or that they're skipping safety protocols, all of them died mysteriously. So activists die all the time for the causes that they have undertaken. That's how I see life. You know, I live life one day at a time. I expect the worst. I hope for the best. So, and I'm sure anybody who is doing it on the scale that we have done it knows that that's a possibility at any time. So if you get to hear that I died, just don't cry for me. I just yeah. But it's the way it is. Yeah, that's what it is. It is what it is. Yes.
Do you have a will? Have you written your will?
I don't have anything to put in a will. I just have only two. I have like 3 iPhones. That's not enough to write a will on. Yeah.
All right. Any question from you guys? Any more questions?
Any more question? Feel free. It's been an exciting class, by the way. Just you guys are gonna make me want to teach again. I like the engagement and the ambience of the class. This class weren't as nice as this when I was teaching here. So you guys are.
They
rebuilt the hall of fence. Everything is nicer, And look at this. We used to when I was here, we used to write with chalk.
I remember.
We used to have a blackboard and we had to clean it and if you needed a TV in those days, you had to order for it.
Yeah, they would.
And then they would wheel it
in. Wheel it in.
Yeah,
I
so
remember.
this place used to be like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, they've actually scaled up.
Yeah. That's impressive, SVA.
But what they pay professors is still the
same. Well, you guys need to go strike like Boeing mechanics. Yes, go on strike. Go on strike. That's the only solution. But Donald Trump doesn't tolerate you.
No. You can't strike.
You can't strike. If you strike, you're gone.
The teachers are making a union though.
Yeah, they're trying to.
That would be great, but it's,
maybe they need you. There's one guy that's been talking about it every day. He sees me. He said, "Oh,
we need you." Yeah, then you get killed in New York. I don't want anybody shooting me in the York. I probably prefer Nigeria. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Africa. Yeah. Is there a Nigerian here?
Oh, there is. Who is the Nigerian? Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Ask any question about Nigeria.
That's impressive. You are strong.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Thank you guys.
Right. Thank you.
Appreciate your inviting me to the class, and I promise to be back again, but not this year.
Next year, we have.
When's your finals?
Finals is They have to finish on the 17th.
Do you guys still do like take home? Do you do how do you do your exams? You do.
And now we have new things, you know. There's take home for midterm.
Mine is open book. You know.
That was when it was easy. Now it's not easy anymore. They do take home sometimes.
Can I have that?